Okay, good.
All right,
Okay.
guys. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome my special guest, man. This is a guy that's the father of the up and coming, soon to be superstar of the making, man. We'll talk about Buford Holton, who's, his son Gracen, man. How you doing, bro?
Oh, everything is good, man. Thanks you for this opportunity to come on, and explain a little more about his background and about my foundation, Always Giving Back Sports Foundation.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
you know,
Oh, for those people not too familiar with you, bro, tell who you are and tell who your son is.
I'm Buford Halton, born and raised in San Diego, California. Fortunate enough, have 5 kids. My youngest of 2 boys, have a son named Avi Halton and Gracen Halton, as you guys know, he gets all the exposure and stuff. And it's been a collective thing, him growing up with 3 sisters, Dominique, Ariana, and Deandra, gave him an opportunity to be spoiled and nurtured and stuff. And, I was there to, just watching him, making sure that, he kept it in perspective and turned out to be, a good thing for him, having all the women around him.
Oh, absolutely. Before we get to all those questions, let's talk about your promotion. Like, what do you do on your foundation?
Always Giving Back Foundation is a foundation I started, back in 2009, inspired, first of all, my mom passed away when I was 12 years old. So being the youngest of 3, I had 2 older brothers, my brother Vernon, my brother Lee. And, that sort of inspired me. I grew up off of in Southeast San Diego off Ocean View Boulevard, where we were involved in community efforts from the youth service center that I was involved with. So I seen how the impact that it had on me, growing up in San Diego, especially, after my mom had passed away, being involved in, community efforts and stuff and being able to benefit from them in Southeast San Diego. So it inspired me to start my own foundation. One of the things I identified early is that the kids, really throughout, and in the city can tell you about going pro in sports. But one of the things that I wanted to point out to them is that there's all type of careers that are offered through sports. You can be an agent, you can be a trainer, doctor, orthopedic surgeon, community leader, police officer, just anything involved in sports, So I started the foundation in 2009 and I was able to, work in the community of Southeast San Diego, coach my son, Grayson at Skyline, watch him play there, then I coached him about 3, 4 years, and then just getting him involved in the community and everything is it inspired just some of the things that we were able to do together, and I think it really turned out well because as he got to high school and other things, there was not a lot of things that I could tell him or show him or anything else because he had seen it all before, and you see you see the finished product now, but starting out, he's still young now, but you're seeing the finished product as far as him getting to being an adult, and that's where, I was a parent and I always want to be a parent. And, now it's his turn. I'm no longer, involved in his day-to-day life, his day-to-day life. He's a father now, he's a grown man, and I'm just a proud father, just here to tell the story on and just give insight on how we got to this point.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, man. Like, that foundation influenced you to do better. So I guess that makes a lot of sense of what you give back to that community. I mean, there's a lot of people who forget where they come from and they just leave and go a different path. But seems to me you give back to a great community.
Well, if you don't know the history of Southeast San Diego, it's a talent-rich, community, and there's a lot of great players. We have 4 Heisman trophies from there, Super Bowl MVPs. My favorite athlete, Marcus Allen, he's from San Diego. And grew up around a lot of great athletes. So when your son is growing up and he's trying to make his way, all you can do is try to tell him, hey, be yourself, take your own path, and work hard. And that's where, he benefit from. I put him in camps early, coached him all through youth sports. And he always did well in those camps. He knew what competition and stuff was about, and it started out, with his brother Inavi. He's 5 years older, and he was a bigger kid, fast and everything, so I sort of instilled, came at him a certain way. And as when Gracen was born, Gracen would watch, and there was a certain competition there, and it got to a point where Gracen got about 7, 8, 9 years old, and his brother was, 4 or 5 years older, and the competition got pretty good, and it just showed me that, that Gracen was a competitor and stuff, but he wouldn't be able to compete the way he was if he didn't have his brother Navi there, driving him and stuff. So them two together, was just a match made in heaven, I would say, because it got the best out of Gracen. It made him, compete at a high level because his brother was bigger, faster, and stronger at the time, and that's what brought, like Grace says, that dog in him. That's what brought it out of him because he was very competitive at an early age.
Siblings kind of bring a better competition when you think about it. Usually the younger brother wants to do better than the older brother. That's just the truth of how it goes by. Like you said, he brought the dog in him because his brother brought the best out of him. And like you said, he even out-compete him at one point.
Yeah, that's it, and then from that point on, him coming through youth sports, he played all different positions, played different sports, soccer. That's probably the sport I really enjoyed him most because I seen him uncomfortable at it and then became really good at it, and he did two things. One time I saw him score maybe 8 to 10 goals in one game, and he also was a goalie. And in both of those different teams, one, he played at Allen Elementary, and they won a championship down at the Olympic Training Center, which was the first, which was great to see. And then the second one was he played at a local Paradise Hills. He had a coach, Jose, who coached him in basketball and seen him and stuff. And it's like, man, we would love to get him out there in soccer. And Gracen went out there, and they ended up doing well. And he was scored a bunch of goals, and he went down to San Ysidro, California, San Diego, there by the borders, Tijuana, and he was able to win a 9, 10, 11-year-old championship. So there was 2 championships in soccer. He played baseball, he played basketball, he played football, and football is where his heart was and stuff. Even though I was pushing baseball, because I have a dear friend who offered to be the godfather of Gracen when he was younger. My buddy Gary Sheffield. I met him in San Diego, California, back when he was playing with the Padres. And our friendships has always been, good since. And, just sort of pushing that because I seen the way his career went. Gracen played baseball and he was good at it, but he was more of a guy that wanted to control everything that he wanted to do, and that was more so football. He felt that, he could get in there and he can do the things he wanted to do, But it took all those sports, I think, collectively to get him to where he's at now.
Yeah. So when did you knew he would be an NFL player one day, man? Because most parents would have a feeling like, you know what, man, I know my boy's gonna do something special one day.
I really can't say that because, like I said, I come from San Diego, man. There's a lot of great kids, and there was kids like that drove him. That I would say, there was a kid I remember, Springs, Herman Smith. There's a bunch of names I can't remember right now, but I know those names because those are guys he would watch, and they were all older than him. And I believe that's what drove him more than anything. One of the things that I give his mom credit for is when he was playing flag football, his mom made him play one more year flag football. Even though he was bigger and stuff, but he was younger and he got to play. He had a buddy, DeRay Springs, so he got a chance to play with him. However, you could see him itching. He was like, man, we would go to Vegas to the tournaments and stuff, and he would watch them guys. They won trophies. And a guy that was very significant at that time in his life is his buddy Xavier, who unfortunately passed away at an early age. But that was probably the driving point where those two came together. And then when Gracen started to get older and he developed purpose because he always missed his buddy Xavier, you could see him wearing that, as it was a badge of honor. It was just a driving thing, and that was one thing that I had to learn about him that I didn't understand, and those were the things that were we learned together, and stuff. And when you say thinking about knowing he would be an NFL player, no, man, every parent has that dream. But I think through the grace of God and level of commitment and practice and the focus, that's where it comes at. Because there's a lot of athletes that I saw that I thought were better than Grace. He played with a lot of great athletes, and it just, works out a certain way. Now, Gracen is sort of unique that I didn't, and like I said, I learned from him because if you don't know, he only took 2 recruiting trips. University of Oregon, he committed. Cristobal left. He opened up recruitment, went to University of Oklahoma, and committed. And it was like, Dad, this is it. This is what I want to do. And I knew then, I said, okay, being experienced and stuff, all the different years you hear about athletes who went away to college and stuff and they came back and, wasn't successful and stuff. And you hear those stories more than not. And so I always did my research on that. Wanted to know why guys came back. And it was that same thing that got me too. And I went to college. I played at Cal State Fullerton. I was homesick, wanting to get back to San Diego. So homesickness was one of the things. So then I made a move, when he chose Oklahoma, that changed my whole life. I moved out of San Diego, born and raised, and I moved to Oklahoma to support him because I didn't want to hear him calling me, hey, Dad, he's lonely or whatever. Hey, Dad, this ain't working out. None of that. I want to let him know, hey, I'm here. So if it ain't working out, show me what's not working out. We will get through this together. You know what I'm saying? He came in and put in 4 years. He had opportunity, I'm sure. I was contacted many a times about him leaving or whatever. And he never wavered. And I would tell those people, I say, listen, I'm not going to bring nothing to my son that he don't bring to me. What you guys just talking about sounds good, but that's not y'all's dream. And it's not my dream. This is my son's dream. And he lived it out, and that's what he did. So he committed, did his 4 years, and him knowing that I was down here was, I'm sure, we've talked about it, and it helped, and those are the things that I'm proud about. But then when I left San Diego, coming down here, did I know he was going to be an NFL player? No, not at all. It was a prayer and a dream just for me, and by the grace of God, he's living his dream. So, I'm here to just, tell the story because there was no plans other than God's plans. And those are the plans that he stuck to. And those are the things I still don't understand. However, I know that they're true. So that's where my faith comes in, and everything that I try to build from now on is about that, what God has given me. And my testimony is that, really, you got to believe. You just got to believe.
Got to believe because things happen for a reason. But it's pretty rare for some athletes to stay in one school throughout their career because you got a lot of those transfer portals. You got a lot of players who just want to get the money and all that stuff. But it just proved that Gracen was loyal and money wasn't quite the factor of what happened. He just, stayed to a program that's pretty rare for most of these college athletes, man. But that speaks a lot about his commitment.
Yeah. And like I said, that's what you get in the guy. People look at him now, and that's what you get, and those things are from what he showed. It's not what I'm telling you. You've seen it, like I tell my buddies,
the work that speaks for itself.
I post it, but it is just him, and, I'm proud of him. And I'm sure his family is, his mom is proud of him. She was instrumental, as well as, he got a lot of women on the other side of the family that
the other side of the push
balance that they got these nicknames for him. I ain't gonna say one, but
one's G baby is what they call him.
Yeah, that's what we keep it at, G baby.
Like nothing but a G day, baby. Hey, speaking of somebody that I just mentioned, there's a comment from somebody that you're familiar with.
Okay, who is that? I can't even see.
Oh, you can't see? Cheryl She said Mr. Holton's is the best. The lady,
Oh,
the
oh yeah.
lady. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I know you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, she's you're talking about biggest fan. She's been a big supporter. And back when his journey started, I transferred him from a school out to Island Elementary in Bonita, where I lived on Bonita Road there. So, and he went there and established some really, really good relationships and stuff. Went there, went to Rancho Del Rey Middle School, and then St. Augustine High School. And those three schools have, give him some of the most support. You got fans from elementary, coming to his college games, the Sanchez, Cheryl and them, the whole family coming out and stuff, supporting him and stuff, all the way to this point. I'm sure he has a lot of gratitude towards them as well, because, they're close and dear to the heart, and everything. So, it's been a great experience, just some of the relationships that he's established, that allows me to get to know these people, and these people get to know me as well.
Yeah, well, it was kind of like what got us to interact was a couple of your son's videos, and then you and Cheryl came out of nowhere, and it just became a good vibe. It's always good conversation, and I'm kind of feeling like I'm kind of doing good things for a lot of it. I'm a big fan of Oklahoma for quite a while. I've been, I guess I was more of a big fan of Sam Bradford before the injuries and all that stuff. But Gerald McCoy was one of my favorite D tackles. But I think when I watch Gracen play, man, he gives me a little bit of that Gerald McCoy, but he's got the potential to be like kind of like what Aaron Donald is. Like you said, he's scratching the surface. He's still young. He's got a lot. Like he's got many years in his prime.
Well, yeah, those are big time comparisons, and I think that like with him, the best is yet to come. That's what he tells me. So, and I think him being at this pivotal point and stuff, and especially now him going to San Diego, they're playing the Chargers, they're practicing with him, and they're going to play Thursday. I know he's got to be excited, because everybody he knows on his, family is Charger fans, other than, the Cowboy fans. We got a few Cowboy fans, me, myself, man, I'm still trying to make this judgment.
Oh, speaking of this, man, like what was the surreal moment just from the draft moment? Like, your son goes from growing up as a Cowboys fan to now playing the opposite way. Like I know you grew up as a Cowboys fan. That rivalry between the 49ers had to be kind of like one of those best rivals in football. But what was it like, man? Just realizing, damn, my son's going to play for the Niners and not the Cowboys.
Yeah, that was it was something. It was like they say, surreal. And when I was on my way out there to the draft party and stuff, I was outside when my phone banging started ringing, and I was seeing this bang bang Niner gang and all that. And I'm walking down. It was out in Pacific Beach there. He had a beach house there, because he didn't get drafted on his draft party, and just hearing that, and I'm going. And when I get up there, it's just crazy. Everybody, the family's jumping around, and there's 49ers. But I knew it coming up the stairs, and I'm thinking 49ers. Wow. That's a great situation, because, being from San Diego, you watch John Lynch, I met him a few times out there, in San Diego. He went to Torrey Pines. I think his son went to Cathedral, though, over there, because I remember going over there. There was some conversation. I used to have Gracen playing quarterback, so I had him up there at Cathedral on Sundays when he was 14 playing, getting some quarterback training through my buddy John Bankhead and Jeff Garcia's little group, and stuff. So just looking at that and knowing that, Fred, 54 from San Diego, and just I was able to contact JJ Stokes and talk to him, a bit about it. He's like, man, I'm just proud of it. He says, there's anything that I can do to reach out and help your son make his transition more comfortable, and stuff. But even though, being a Cowboy fan, you grow up, Ronnie Lott. I was a USC fan. My favorite athlete ever is, Marcus Allen. So watching USC and all the great players, 49ers, you got to respect them when they catch and stuff. I was a young buck and stuff. And, just the different games and stuff. And, now I'm being put in this position. Now I got to give up one for the other. And there's no way, you can, and I'm going to witness it here, when the Cowboys play the 49ers. And I'm going to be there. And with that Holden name running around, on that 49er jersey, you can't go against that.
Well, like they say, usually it's family that you have to go around with. But I mean, you still have that cowboy fandom in you, but it's just the pages turn, unfortunately, right?
No, Gracen ain't gonna have that.
But he's going to have to make a mark on his
It's
legacy.
all or nothing with him. It's gonna be all or nothing with him, So that's what I'm gonna give you. That's what he gave me. So I owe it to him.
Man, loyalty, like they say, but just for that surreal moment, it had to be like just something like, I mean, most parents don't get the opportunity to see their kids get drafted or go to the big stage, so it has to be like rewarding for you to help your son reach his dream.
You know what? I think what's more rewarding is sharing the experience with the parents that I deal with that sons didn't make it or, fell short, whatever, to share those stories. Because like I said before, it was Gracen. I was a big fan of San Diego. I was in the community watching great athletes, Moores, Lincoln, Crawford, Southeast, Oceanside, where all the great players came from. Helix. My other son, Inabi, went to Helix, finished up at Otay Ranch, and just all those athletes before that I was a fan of. Then I got me one. I got me two, my son Inabi, who set the stage for Gracen. And then Gracen, just sort of took it from there. And, so all you can do is be proud of it, ride with it. But I think more than anything, I just love talking to the parents and the ex-coaches. And we have a community of people that got a lot of love for Gracen that coached him back in the day, people I grew up with. That was a part, of coaching him and stuff and watching him play and do his thing, and get to this point, and as you see, he's not shy of the camera or anything because he's always had the opportunity to be in front of people, and that's one of the things that I tried to make sure that he was always, coached differently. I switched him, he started at Skyline, then he went out to Bonita. They had a great program. They won a Q Bowl championship, went down to Florida and played. Then he comes back and we go back to Skyline. And then once Skyline didn't have a 14-year-old, we went over to Balboa. He went over there and he played quarterback. And then from quarterback, he went to St. Augustine. And then from St. Augustine, he was just a linebacker, and had an injury, towards ACL. And, as a ninth grader, he playing varsity. And, wearing number 32 because he was honoring his dad, wearing Marcus Allen's number. And then he eventually switched up to number 6, and he was able to play and be successful there, and his loyalty and commitment was just, when he went to Oregon, he was committed. That was his thing. We were Oregon, do or die, then when Crystal Ball left, went to, back to Miami, I did some consulting, and my best buddy from high school, Dennis Ellis, had given me a call, and he was like, "Hey, man, you think Gracen would consider Oklahoma?" I'm like, "Oklahoma?" He was like, "Yeah, I got a buddy I met back in the day. He's a big OU fan, and I was just show him Gracen's film and stuff, and now, recruiting opened up, what do you think?" And I was like, "Well, we'll see." So I told Gracen, and he was like, "Oklahoma," and he could have, then the next day I'm taking him to school at St. Augustine. He's like, "Dad, who is Brett Venables?" And I was like, "Brett Venables?" I said, "That's Clemson's coach." And he was like, "Nah," he said he's an Oklahoma coach. I was like, "Oklahoma, okay." So then I guess, things transpired, and to set the stage on how much they love football at the University of Oklahoma. Man, I got a call from Toby Keith at the time telling me about Gracen's film. Gracen did an event up at Lincoln High School. There's like a YouTube challenge, and he was running routes, catching passes. And he was telling me about that and, what they think about Gracen. Like they say, bada bing, bada boom, we take a trip down, Gracen comes down, meets some great people. And he was like, Dad, that's where I want to be, and that's where I had to make a whole different shift because I didn't want to leave him hanging, but I didn't want him to experience anything that other athletes or myself, with homesickness and stuff, as I was
Yeah,
saying
it could be
before.
without the
And I was
family
like,
around.
I got to move, and it was like, man, I had to switch everything. And I made it work, and came down, and I was homesick myself, and everything.
But you
And
got used to it.
after about a year or two of paying bills down here, yeah, it's a
Yeah,
whole different from San Diego. So, you be like,
the lifestyle of San Diego has to be great and expensive, but what's the adjustment from going to Oklahoma? What's the environment difference over there?
I tell you what, I've been to church more down here than I've been, other than being a youth when my mom was alive, in San Diego down here. I've really leaned on my faith and everything more than anything in my adult life. That's one of the benefits. And that's what I'm so proud of right now, because that's our connection with me and Gracen and all my kids. Every morning I send out a text and they respond, and Gracen now sends me Bible scriptures and stuff just to reinforce, some of the things that he's going through and some of the things we talk about. But just lifestyle and stuff, you don't know nobody here, so the first year or two, I was in East Texas a lot. All my family's from Longview, Dallas. My daughter's in Dallas. I got a daughter in Austin. So I was in East Texas a lot, visiting, family and stuff, people that were instrumental in my life, so that's what I leaned on, stuff. So I really hadn't touched reality of sitting down here. Now I'm sitting down here, in this last year or so. I'm like, wow, could I live here? Or, maybe, and then, my daughter's pulling at me, in Dallas. So that's probably where I'm going to end up at, but it just, it's no different. It's just that, when I get to East Texas and I get there, you feel the love and stuff. And that's what, I want more of than anything.
Yeah, I got family mostly down South Texas or other areas, but you get that good vibes and the South vibes and all the good stuff over there. But like you said, you feel homesick when your family's just spread it all around. I'm like the same way, man. Most of my family just left out of state, so it's like got into a couple months to get my life figured out, and I moved down to the desert down in Arizona pretty soon.
Oh, nice. That's good, man. That's good.
Yeah, job opportunities, so it should be better. Been stuck in Fresno for quite a while, but it's been like a struggle. So it's like I want to try something different, try to see what I can get the most out of.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Sometimes changes take sacrifice, and it might be worth it, it might not. But you got to take chances, or else you're going to be stuck where you're at.
I tell you what, it's a bonus. I was coming down here with the expectation, hey, for him to graduate, and keep going, other than football. That was my cap, that was it. If you can give me that, because when I got down here, I didn't have to pay no college tuition, no question. He never had to, the NIL and everything is a blessing. Hopefully everybody can benefit from it in a positive way, because there's a lot of negative to it. And I've seen it down here, with the transfers and different stuff, and you getting to know parents and stuff and know why they're leaving and different things like that. And those are a lot of things that what happens is over time, you don't want to try to defend your son's decisions to stay, but you hear what other people are saying. And those are the things that I think that are not good, for things like, just when we got down here, we were sold on when Brett Venables and Bates and the coaching staff and everything made it clear, that their opportunity and that what they really understand is that you recruit your problems. And those are the things that you have to understand, and I think seeing that transition out and seeing them now full with players that they recruited and stuff, and players that have came and left and stuff. And you understand that, man, this football team and the community and stuff is a unique thing. And if you can buy into it, you can have success. The success ain't going to always come when people that are, you know, guiding you and stuff think it's going to come. And that's what I learned. Yeah. Heck, every year I come out, every game I come out, I want him to do this and do that and do this, you know, but after year one, you know, you just say, okay, after I talk with my son, he tells me he learning, he going, year two comes, you know, year three and year four, and you believe in the process and stuff. And when it came to that and the combine and everything, you just, you know, you have to believe in the process. And believe me, the University of Oklahoma and what they established as far as values and everything from the beginning to the end, and even the support I can get to this day from them is, you know, top notch, and it's something that I would share with any parent. And those are the things. And transferring is something that I've never been a part of, you know. And I had an opportunity to address that with my son in high school. It was a transfer situation, and after talking to him, you know, and him believing, you know, what I had explained to him, how it works out and everything. It's good to know, because when he got here to college, I think he felt the same way. And he was able to put in those 4 years. And I don't think he would ever change a thing that he's done. I know I wouldn't.
I mean, that's the mindset we gotta like. I mean, you gotta be loyal to one program, and sometimes I get it. For some athletes, they take the money or they look for an opportunity to be a starter. I mean, those are circumstances. But if a guy like Gracen's already been an established player and he just has to keep working, man, sometimes sticking around can always pay huge dividends for some of these guys. But yeah, going to one of the best competition, he should have already been a second round pick or a little higher, you know, based by his talent. I mean, he's got the traits, you know, the more he plays, the more the fans are going to realize. But what are the fans? What do the fans need to know about your son, man? Like as a person or anything like that?
I think they're getting to know it, you know. Anytime they put the film on him, and I mean they put the tape on him, he's you know, he's being himself, you know. And that's Gracen, you know, and he's, you know, always been that way. And it's just good to see him, you know. It's good to see him now. He's a grown man, and you know, just the way he deal with his sisters, the way he deal, you know, he got a bunch of nieces and nephews. I got 14 grandkids, you know, and 2 sets of twins, you know, and we got a 15-year-old grandson. His birthday is today. TJ, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
TJ. And you know, and it's like, wow, you know, those are the things. I want him to be a great father. I want him to be a better uncle. I want him to, you know, do the things, you know, be able to share, because he does it on his own. He loves, you know, he works with special needs. His mom, you know, works with special needs. You know, she has a kind heart when it comes to that. That's something that, you know, he takes on. You know, he has pride in that, as well as just, you know, being a great person out there, God-fearing man, and someone, you know, that you can count on. And those are the things that, you know, he brings to the table. And, you know, like with anything, when you have a big heart, sometimes you have to, it could be dangerous, you know. And those are the things, you know, as a parent, those are the things I'm looking forward to, maybe pulling him to the side, or him calling me, hey, Dad, this is what's going on. You know, those are the things, you know, that I'm looking forward to. You know, I mean, the stuff on the football field is great and all that. But, you know, I want to hear more stuff about my grandson, what he doing. And, you know, do we know Paul's voice and stuff? I haven't had an opportunity to meet him yet. So I'm looking forward to going out there and meeting him and stuff in the next week. I'm supposed to go to the Vegas game. So Lord's willing, I'll be able to make that and be able to watch his preseason game.
That's going to be a good opportunity, man. You get to build some memories and all that good stuff. You know, like most people don't get a chance to enjoy moments with families because, you know, some people take it for granted. And the moment you don't spend time with those loved ones, man, they could be gone. So it's like I had to learn the hard way, you know. I didn't think much of it till then, until I started like getting into reality. I'm like saying, man, that's true. If you don't put time with your family as much often, man, and they're gone, you're gonna regret those opportunities. So now I'm kind of taking it like seriously. Like every time I see them, I gotta take every moment with them before it's their last.
Oh yeah, you got to. You don't get this time back, you know. And those are the things that as you get older, you start to understand because it goes quick.
Yeah.
It's faster than what I ever remembered. So, you just kind of want to embrace every moment, take every opportunity to, learn and grow from every situation. And, being from Southeast San Diego, and like I said, with the talent and everything, that's why athletes continue to come out of there better, getting better. The competition is better because we got a lot of great guys, shout out to my buddy David Dunn at Lincoln High School. We had a great conversation the other day just about how they do football differently down here in Oklahoma and Texas versus California, and he's there, blood, sweat, and tears. And these coaches down here, are making mints, doing the things that they love, and I was just like, wow, man, I just have to commend you on it because, I got an opportunity to see a different version of it, and that goes to all the coaches there. I'm friends with a lot of coaches on Facebook, Coach Wesley and them from, North County, Torrey Pines, the different schools and stuff. I'm always in contact, St. Augustine, Lincoln, Hoover, Crawford, just, shout out to all those schools because those schools, amongst myself growing up, I went to Crawford and was able to, play at Valencia Park with talent rich, everything, and you're able to take some of those experiences and a lot of those experiences, some of the drills, just the stuff that you learned back in the 80s and 90s. Gracen went through those drills, whether he knew it or not, and you look at football now, the stuff that they have out there, the equipment and stuff, is totally different from, how I grew up. So it's like, man, some of the stuff out there, I don't even know how to operate. So it's like, wow,
Different kind of stuff.
and 300 pounds look totally different. Grayson's 305 pounds, it's like, man, and he was a running back, growing up at Skyline all them years, just running, and this is just incredible. So I could have never, imagined him growing up to be 6'3", 305 when, he was just a regular dude with all the regular kids growing up, so it's just a blessing, and the testament, and I just thank all the people from the community, all the other great kids that were out there pushing him and sharing with him in those experiences, all them hot days, at Skyline and going through the things that we went through,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, here's a good question. Like, as far as like someone, let me give a shout out to Notorious GAV. What's Buford's proudest moment so far watching his son?
Proudest moment watching my son. There's been so many, and the one recently is, having that son, him sending me that picture. And I'm thirsty now because I ain't had a chance to meet him. So I'm looking forward to going out there. So that's right there on my mind right now. But other than that, just the fact that the Alabama game.
Best
I watched
competition, best team in the program that you could say, man.
Alabama game. That game, watching him, and you watch your son, but you watch Alabama all the years, and you go, okay, well, let me see. And I'm looking at those linemen and stuff, and the one lineman, I think the Cowboys took him in the first round. He's a second-year guard, and that's who Gracen was head on. And to watch him handle his own out there, just like you saw in that game against the Titans. It was like, wow, it just blew me away. And then the NFL type stuff started, that started coming. See, I'm only thinking graduation, time in there. You can tell him anytime we would always go to dinner tradition. My birthday, he'd take me to eat. We go to Mott's, get some tater skins and stuff. And I'm talking graduation type stuff, how many units, what you doing? And he looking at me and he's telling me that. But then, football, man, they done transferred in, guys. What you think? Oh yeah, he light up. Oh, that's just competition, yeah, I'm ready, and I'm like, wow, because you're getting all these different influences. They're bringing in this guy, transferring this guy, how's Gracen, gonna handle that, and I'm like, hey, it's competition. And to you to stand on that and him give you that effort at the combine and all the different things and the numbers and stuff fall out like that, that let me know he gave me maximum effort. And that's the proudest thing you can be, because 36.5 vertical, third highest ever vertical for a D tackle. You know, the 40, I know he could have ran faster than that in the 40. And, you know, it's just those things, you know, and that just let me know he put in the work, because you can't do that without putting in the work. So those are the
Absolutely.
things that, you know, I tell all the young kids, man, when you find that work ethic, that's going to be the number one thing. Because transferring, you got to do it. It works for people. You know, sometimes the uber talented players get to do that. But more times than not, I would rather have a resume of being a solitude guy, somebody that can go, be committed, and give you, you know, 110% effort all the time.
Absolutely. But yeah, man, like that's what you kind of are like, that's what you're mostly proud of, is the maximum effort and the work he put in, the hard work that paid off. He finally gets to live out a dream. I mean, the best attitude I could say about this guy is he embraces being an underdog. So he says it's okay. I'm gonna prove everybody wrong. And that's the mentality I like about a player that has a chip on his shoulder.
Yeah, and that confidence comes from the work. You know what I'm saying? He believes in the work, and that's a good thing, you know. Stacking them days, 1% every day, you know. And those are the things that he got from the University of Oklahoma that, you know, I don't think is, you can put a value on it, because not only is it going to be valuable now, it's going to be valuable once you're no longer playing, because now it's about the relationship you build. And I know, you know, from just me going down there, and I'm looking forward to going to a couple OU games, the first opening night, to hang out with my old tailgate people, because of the value and just the stuff that they instilled in their commitment to be there for the athletes. And just like I would show up, they would treat me like I was an athlete. You know, I'm Big Daddy on campus. You know, it was just a great experience. And they love football totally different down here than I ever seen, you know, from where I'm from. So it's like, wow, you're blown away by that. And you just, you know, I just look forward to, you know, I probably won't be around some of the relationships he's going to be able to go back and build on, you know, years from now. But I'm pretty sure that he's in good hands, you know, when it comes to that. His alumni, you know, a lot of people, a lot of these kids talk about legacy and stuff. And those are the building blocks from legacy. Once you find a university that you're tied to and you can always lean on, and they're always supportive of you, like the University of Oklahoma has been of my son, you know. And I'm just looking forward to him maybe after football being able to come back and benefit from those relationships, because hopefully some of those great people will still be around.
Yeah, that's what you build, a good relationship. You build some good remarkable marks for those individuals and all that stuff. But I mean, I'm sure your son has other plans in place, you know, all that stuff. You know, when you got a big stepping stone, you got other platforms down the road to build on, you know?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like I said, that's the most important thing, to know that he's able to get out there and flourish when it comes to meeting people, and, you know, people understanding where he comes from and what he values in life, you know, and that's what's important.
Yeah, that's what we look at. But I don't know about this question. There's no ifs about it, man. This kid is going to make the most of his opportunity. I believe he's gonna have a pretty good NFL career. But if this were a plan, I'm pretty sure he's already got a plan in mind.
What's the question?
The question is, does Gracen have a plan if NFL doesn't work out, or a bust and all that? But you know, I kind of like to feed more into it, but I think you kind of get the different mindset. But I mean, I'm sure he's
Well,
already got
yeah,
plans.
oh, well, man, as anytime you hear about athletes that suffer from financial responsibility, to CTE, to whatever the athletes are challenged with, yeah, that's definitely that. You know, and my thing is to say that this here, the plan is God's plan, and that's it. You know, and I think it's worked to get him to this point, and I believe that he understands when it's God's plans, what his responsibilities has to be as a father, a human being, a community citizen, a leader. You know what I'm saying? Those things that he has to continue to have perspective on. So I think it's going to be, first of all, it's going to be God's plan. that's going to be leading him. And then in other words, he going to have to fill in the gaps and make sure that he follow the rules and regulations like anybody. He's no different from any other kids that I've ever talked to before, that I have no problem picking up the phone with, pulling to the side, talking to now. That's been a part before Gracen was even involved. Was in this perspective. There's kids that I still have relationships with. So it's just like them and then and him, Gracen, is going to have to go out there and learn through his mistakes. I'm sure he going to make them. He got my blood in it. I can, that's just it. So what can you do? All you can do is be prepared to and equip them with understanding what God's plan is. And when you deviate from it, you can always, come back to him, because he's the only one that's going to allow you to do that. So long as it's God's plan, that's his plan, I believe.
Oh, yeah. Well, speaking of it, man, like I know we've been going on for a little longer. I know you probably got some stuff to do, man, but maybe in the near future we can get something going again. Maybe we can get your son on in the near future also, if that works.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully hear about it and say that's something he will want to do. Other than that, I'll talk to him about it, but he will see what he got going on. They got some stuff for him right now, I'm pretty sure. So I'm just looking forward to going out there.
Yeah, one last question, then we'll end this. So I guess this is an interesting question. Do you have any funny stories of Gracen when he was a kid?
You know what? I'm gonna tell you. Yeah, this is a story, and it's funny because when Gracen, when I switched him to Allen Elementary School, okay, he would get invited to these parties all the time, right? And I remember going to a party, and I get up in the party, and I see, and there's like 15 girls, and it's him. So I, drop him off, and I leave, and I come back. And I get there a little early, and I go in there, and they playing in the room, and he's sitting there in the middle, and there's them same 15 girls around him, and he's just clowning, doing his thing. And I'm like, where the boys at? So when I get him in the car, the driver, I'm like, man, where the boys at? He said, oh, Dad, they didn't invite none of the dudes. I said, they invited you? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, what? So the next party was a bowling party. In Bonita, same thing, all girls. So I was like, what it was is that these mothers at these elementary schools liking Gracen, inviting him to all their daughters' function stuff. Cheryl especially spoiled him. Oh my goodness. I mean, it's like and that's how it was. And that's when I knew he was one of them guys that was really, really relatable. The teachers at Allen Elementary, everybody gravitated towards him. So the funniest thing was just knowing him being an athlete, because now once he get outside that environment around his buddies, it's a whole different Gracen.
Man,
and
so I guess, yeah.
That's funny. That I always thought, and I would think about it, I'd be like, this dude is something else, He cool around all the girls.
And it seemed like the mothers trust him. That's the crazy part.
Yeah.
Like, you put the trust in one individual, right? And he's got to be one of the nicest people, but then he gets the most invitation, right?
That's what happened. That's probably, the funniest thing, just watching him growing up was that, and I think he took advantage of it too, tell you the truth. Because he was like, oh, they love me. He get birthday gift, it's just crazy, and I was just like, wow. So yeah, definitely. That's probably just I would say it's the funniest story, but really that's the one that really made me laugh about it. I'm just like getting to know him, because that's the whole thing. You see how he smiled. He loved to, do his thing, and like he meet those players. Dad, I seen Bosa. Oh my God. He's like a kid, he's like out there just having fun. But then when you see him in them drills, you like, whoa, he's aggressive, it's a whole different thing.
It's like that light switch, right? Like you become a normal person, and once you're on the field, switch lights.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, man. But man, it was a great interview, great interaction, man. Definitely looking forward to many more, bro. Like you got a great son. I'm hoping for the best career. And if it goes as planned, man, I'm gonna follow in your trail and probably order his jersey probably pretty soon. I gotta get more of watching him again, and I gotta keep pushing the hype on this guy. That's what I'm gonna do.
All righty. Well, see, I'm still operating in faith, man. He'll get it done.
Oh yeah, for
Thank you
sure.
for
But
taking the opportunity, man, for me to, share some light on, just where he come from, what my attitude is and stuff. And, like I said, man, my son is, as blessed as they can be. And just a shout out to all the people that's been there to support him and stuff and see him through his way through and stuff. I really appreciate you guys.
oh yeah, and last thing, before we end this, tell them where they can find your social media platform.
It's you just Google Always Giving Back Sports Foundation. That's my foundation. It's a Google site. Or I'm on Facebook, Instagram, AGB Sports Foundation.
Okay, and for those people, man, give them a follow, man, and shout out to Gracen Halton, man. A great father from Buford, man, a great man that raised a soon-to-be, I'm going to sound crazy, a soon-to-be Hall of Famer in the future. That might sound crazy.
Well, it sounds good, but then you hesitant to get the jersey, but it's okay.
It's okay because I'm falling for the hype.
I hear you. Well, I
All right.
appreciate you, man. Take care.